Just getting everything set. Like I've said before, it's just this recording program is a little awkward on the cell phone. I think we should be good right about there. All right. So today I have a really extreme experiment that I want to try. Yesterday I did a time lapse with lamp black, what was it, sepia, raw sienna, and I think some Titan buff Titan. And when I had done it, when I put the wet and wet in, black is very intense, very strong. And as it dries, with all watercolors, there's that drying shift that I talk about. With lamp black, it's super extreme, and you can see it in that video, where everything softens up quite a bit. It gives a really cool effect, but I'm constantly in search of trying to get that that super dark black. There's different ways to approach it. I've been experimenting with the indie blue and the burnt umber. I've also done burnt umber and phthalo blue. But today's experiment is going to be extreme, using fountain pen ink. Now, I could utilize a Chinese ink, like a shellac-based ink, but I'm not really sure where my bottle is. It's somewhere. It might be in the other room with the other inks. But I'm a little concerned about the foldability of the paper afterwards. I might go experiment with that later on, but I wanted to go towards fountain pen ink. And I decided on the Noodler's Heart of Darkness, because I've been experimenting with this a lot, like just throwing in pens, just changing nibs around and whatnot. It has good light fastness properties, especially for a fountain pen ink. I could have gone with Noodler's Black. I could have gone with platinum pigmented ink, the carbon black. That's very common amongst artists, but that's a little bit pricier. So like I said, I've been experimenting with this just in fountain pens, etc., just because of the price and just the quality of it. I really enjoy it. So just to kind of give you an idea, and that was not the way I should have opened that pen. It's a safety pen, which the ink is stored inside and the nib is stored inside, and it could have dumped ink out right like that. But I'm kind of caught up in the video just thinking about stuff. And then to give you an idea of what the ink looks like, it's probably showing up in that case. Let me put it in, try to smear some to show you what it would look like if it was spread out. And this is on a Rhodia pad. So how it'll be on the watercolor paper, not quite sure, but we'll see. And mixed with water, we'll see as well. But I'm hoping that utilizing this and mixing it with the watercolors will give us a very dark, black, dark areas. Now, I like my videos in general. I don't plan out the speech or the thought of the ideas, but figured, I guess there's two ways I could go about doing it. I could put in the black like the underpainting that they do in oil paints, where they kind of put it in. They'll put it in maybe in a brown or maybe like a reddish. They'll let it dry and then they'll paint over that with the actual colors and whatnot, so it kind of just puts the tonal values in and gets the idea in place. So I could probably do that, or I can mix it directly with the watercolors. And I think I wanted to mix it directly with the watercolors to see the effect. And I can experiment with the other one down the line. I think the other way would be more common. That would be your pen and ink, and then you do your watercolor washes over it. So, without further ado, today, driving home from work, I had taken this picture, and I just love how dark everything is. You really can't even see the end of the frame of the painting. It just kind of blends in. So I'm thinking we'll go along with this. We'll do a lemon yellow in the sky right there, raw sienna maybe mixed with some of our earth red, probably do a cerulean blue up into ultramarine. That will be quite interesting, that far line. We'll have to see what happens. And the clouds themselves, that's what got me thinking about those darks. And we'll do that. So I know I didn't really plan out everything great. Let me put some stuff on the palette while we look at this. I don't know how well it shows up. Eventually I'd like to be able to add these pictures. Okay, we got a cobalt blue hue. Why don't we use that instead of cerulean? Because I put it on the palette. The lamp black. Like I said, I'm using the lamp black, but I have that drying shift, so maybe this will help keep it from getting that extreme dry. And change ultramarine. I mentioned the lemon yellow. Do I have a tube out? That's the one that's always eluding me, because it does that. It just goes green so quickly with anything else even remotely looking at it. Put a drop there. Burnt umber. Let's see, where we're going to go. Burnt umber. And I don't really want to, not that, if I wanted to, I could take this palette and I could sit it in the tub with some water in it, or in the sink with some water in it, and within, I don't know how many hours or how many minutes, everything would kind of, you know, turn to, I guess, water. Just lift off the palette, and I could rinse it off and clean it off really quick and just start from scratch. There's really not too much invested in the palette, these colors, but what I'm getting at is I'm going to put the ink in a separate container. I even have an extra thing of water just to kind of prevent the contamination. So there we go. That's our Noodler's Heart of Darkness. And you know what? I could sit this right in here as well. Okay, that's pretty cool. Does that show up in the video? Let me slide this over a little bit. You know, sometimes people like to see the mixing take place, so once we're all situated, we'll get started. I think we kind of get an idea, right? Everybody good? Everybody comfortable? Okay. I got my sleepy time tea. I was on my way to getting ready for bed and took a hot bath, and I was like, I have to do a video. I have to do this. So let's see. Now we shall wet our paper. My brush cleaning has obviously not been that good the past few days. With these brushes, I usually rinse them off in the sink and fling them out and then reshape the end and then let it dry. But this brush, I've had to have been using this one for over a year and a half now. the other day. My fiance, she was good with art, and she wanted to try the watercolors, try my technique and all that. And she took it and she dipped it in the water up until here, and it was like, for those of you that have hake brushes, you'll probably know the exact feeling that went through my whole body when I saw that. But everything is okay. And don't tell her I said that. Okay. She was doing some really nice stuff the other day for her friend's baby shower, where she had taken some watercolor paper, wet it, and splattered some paper on it and just let it diffuse as a kind of background for the writing to go over from the cards. Okay, so I don't really want to... I'm gonna use the word contaminate for mixing the ink from this point forward. This is a lemon yellow. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I really don't usually utilize it. It's kind of just like an extra part of my palette, not a necessity, which is, I guess, kind of weird. Maybe because I just really push towards the grays. You see I picked up something off of the wood on the side and it started changing that tone. So I'm going to have to stop playing with that immediately and move over to raw sienna. Let's put some light red in there. And this will be our sunset skyline. This is my first time, I think, using cobalt blue in a watercolor. I have it when I oil paint, but a lot of the times my colors are just there. Like I just kind of mix them to get that mud and that darkness. So we'll use this one when we don't have ink. Let me see the one there. Okay, cobalt blue. I'll let it mix with these yellows to let it get a little bit of green, light green right there. Or not. This cobalt blue is just a synthetic, I think. Okay. Not really liking that transition just yet. Let's see. I'd recently bought this just to try it out. And that's cerulean. Cobalt blue, pigments PW5. PW, I think that's the white pigment, so it does have that the white in it that's causing that. Let's see. Ultramarine. I feel like I'm going to want some whites in here. I don't know if I had mentioned earlier that I want to start, like if I'm painting from a picture, have a way to upload it for you all to look at and utilize. But I'm kind of tired, kind of flying by the seat of my pants on this one. Okay. This is all going to darken up quite a bit. Now, let's mix ultramarine with burnt umber, and then just give me a purplishness. Okay, then I tapped on some Noodler's Heart of Darkness fountain pen ink. Okay, all right, first of all, that dispersion was quite interesting. I really didn't have much mixing take place on this brush. A lot more intense than I had expected. Let's see if I can get the mix happening here. So, like I said, I don't want to. Let's see what we can do right here. Ultramarine, and I'm getting paint on there. I don't know if the camera's showing it. Let me see. It's not quite picking it up. Let's do the ground while we have this dark on here. We're going to have to come in and put an interesting line in. Okay, I'm just going to put some ink in there and let it disperse. It disperses quite a bit. Now, such an extreme, I think this blue, the sky is just too blue. So let's pull some water. Let's water this down. Now we are going to run with the issue of having a wet into wet. So much water. Now, I'm going to lift and soften up and see how that affects it. I'm not sure how this affects the ink. I believe this ink has something in it that allows it to adhere to the fibers of paper differently than watercolor would. No, that's good. Put some more of that black on there and see what happens. I want to come over this with ultramarine and see how that sits on top. So now we're getting very experimental. For the most part, we have a lot of wet and wet taking place. And we're going to have lost and found edges in here. As we go up in the sky, let's make these bigger. I'll stand up so I can see better. More of the black. Let's kind of pass that over here. Okay. I don't like that shape too much. I can play around with it. We can scratch. Let's see. Flat edge. We can scratch back down to the surface through the ink. Okay, so wash this off. That is probably enough of what I'm going to do with the ink. I'm going to do it below dry so we can see how it changes. So generally there's a lot of ink in most of this. Okay, so if you have headphones on, just cover your ears. Well, your ears are already covered if you have headphones on. Okay, so that's the drying. And I'll grab the painting from yesterday for us to compare. Lamp black is seeming darker. This was lamp black. So I may have to experiment with an increased concentration or a layer of, like I said, like the undercoat layer, just kind of putting those clouds in black and then playing over it. So I don't want to finish the painting there. I feel like I have more that I can do. So now that we see this result, let's do a little bit of experimentation and drop brushes on the floor. Get some water on the palette. Let's try to do a wash on top of this and see what happens. So this is ultramarine. I'm going to try not to go over areas too much because I don't want to pull anything up. I'm going to mix in some of that cobalt blue hue for here. Mix it down to some lemon yellow. Some raw sienna. Let's do light red and lemon yellow. See if we can get an orange. Then a light red. Then we'll go burnt umber. Then raw sienna. No, that was burnt sienna, sorry. And I kind of lost most of my water, so I don't have much of a wash taking place. I kind of just did a wash over everything, see how that changed the painting. Let's do a dry off. Now, just for fun, let's kind of play around with a pen at this point and just see what happens. Let's do a tree structure in here. So we'll do this and then we'll come over with watercolor. So I guess at this point, I mean, it's like very mixed media. I'm not sure. So it's going to go up in here. This is still wet right here. Stay flat. That's great because this is completely not planned out. It is totally experimental. Let's see. Burnt, umber, ultramarine. We'll play with this and we'll vary our concentration of pigment. So I'm just going to go back and forth on the palette between those two. This is going to wind up covering a lot of that ink that I just laid down with the pen. So I guess that shows that if I'm going to do a rigger step like this with getting a grouping of trees in, that I could plan out right on it in that fashion, regardless of what I'm using. I didn't use any lamp black, and I'm try not to kind of keep everything as limited as possible, even though we had poured some out in the beginning. So this is just putting this out. Actually, you know what? Let's take some black ink. This is Noodler's, once again, the Heart of Darkness, the fountain pen ink. So straight from there, let's put that in. And we'll see how it goes from a brush. Really no rhyme or reason, try not to repeat any pattern. This is interesting because if it maintains its intensity, which we have to be careful of, because with any work of art, you don't want to display it in sunlight where it's going to get hit by sunlight. But if this ink maintains its intensity with the drying, it pushes forward amongst the faded back watercolor right in there. But being that it's fountain pen ink, even though it does have good light fastness, you want to be careful with it. So let's answer that question before we go any further. So, as I dried, it probably is more apparent in the video than it was to me how it shifted. The ink is water-based, so it's going to evaporate out, and that's what took place. That's why it lightened up. How it compares to black, lamp black, next time I'm going to have to do lamp black right next to it. But now my mind is on the foliage, and I really need this foliage to pop. So it stands in front of these clouds. So I might mix for a little while. We'll see. Got that ultramarine, lemon yellow. Let's get some more ultramarine in there. I might have picked up some phthalo blue in that mix due to its proximity on the palette, unfortunately. Let's get... I do have sap green on the palette, but yellow, I'm just going to pour it right in the center. Now's a good time to pitch the Patreon account down below. There's a link. There's also, PayPal link if you want to send anything my way for art supplies. I also have an Etsy account where I upload some of these paintings if you are interested in owning any of them. Let's see. I do have a tendency to scrape into trees and have a little bit of fun with them. So let's see where we're at with this one. So I'm standing out. Since we're having so much fun, let's do something we haven't done in a while. Get a fence. If you want to make it a barbed wire fence, just do little dots along it. I have been saturating, or just, I guess, covering these papers with A lot of pigment lately. So let's dry it off and we will call it a night. Just wiping off this excess off the palette. Alright, last dry off. So we'll sign it, put the mat on it, jelly roll, jelly roll. Now, I deviated quite a bit from the original photo I was painting from. The big deviation being obviously this tree outcropping and whatnot. I find that I just have not achieved the ability with watercolor yet, the skill or whatnot, in order to make that original scene beautiful. Might be being too hard on myself, I don't know. But anyway, sorry for that little hint of negativity and doubt right there. I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to follow along. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to make comments and suggestions. And I have a whole bunch of links down below. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great night, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Goodbye.